Welcome to Breaking the Lines podcast. I'm Arland.
I'm Akeem, and this is a Premier League podcast.
All right, match week 9. How you doing, man? How are you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Not so good as you, my brother, but an interesting weekend nonetheless. Ready to review it. Some good games, some entertaining good games for the Premier League.
Yeah,
Good weekends.
crazy weekend. I mean, crazy results all over. From Sunderland moving into the top 2 and Liverpool's woes continuing. It was a interesting weekend. I guess to kick us off, the first game of the match week was Leeds West Ham. This was a funny one because I think you had initially predicted 6-0 for Leeds, but Leeds did come away with it 2-1 at home to West Ham, and I think I actually had 2-1 for Leeds on this one, and you had 2-0.
Oh, when you texted me about the Leeds at the end, about the result, I honestly thought it was 2-0, and I thought I had my first prediction wrong for the weekend. And then I saw that they allowed a goal in at the 90 plus minute because I left about 80 something or whatever. So I thought, it was over for Leeds 2-0. And then I saw they let a goal in, and I was very, very disappointed, bro, honestly.
Yeah, I caught bits and pieces of this game, and then I watched back the highlights, and I mean, it was an interesting game. West Ham just can't defend. I mean, they can't defend anything, to be honest, but in particular, they struggle with crosses into the box so much.
They really have no legs when you think about it. Like we said about just all over the pitch, there's just not enough, runners and anything. So at every sort or at every part of their game looks a bit weak at the moment. And when a newly promoted side, I mean, Chelsea lost 2-1 on Saturday to Sunderland, but when a newly promoted side, not just one, but all, these teams look a lot better than you. That should be an established league team. It's just obviously worrying, and I think we've said it time and time before. Yeah, the signs, it's written on the wall pretty much for West Ham this season unless they pick it up. So it's concerning, honestly. That game, from watching that game and just West Ham so far, if we're to go on the first 9 games, they deserve to be where they are.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's interesting because I don't see them turning it around. I mean, I think Pep Guardiola could take over that team and it wouldn't change a single thing, to be honest. So I don't think it's necessarily the manager's fault.
Yeah, there's, like we said, just not enough physicality of legs or runners. 2 midfielders are old, can't defend. Yeah, too many things to go over. Can't score at the moment. Very tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Good 3 points for Leeds, though. I mean, they still are in 15th place, but, +3 on the points. So I think that, definitely good result for them.
But yeah, absolutely. Like we said, when you can win in and around anything for Leeds, any points those promoted team pick up, this season's going to be tough for them. But still to see them first 9 games, 11 points. You got to remember last season, I don't remember who it was, but there was a team that finished the season with 11 points. So to have 11 points in your first 9 games, yeah, top.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that, we don't have to spend too much time on it, but it's interesting to see sort of with West Ham. I think Nuno has played a different midfield, in the last however many games, and it's almost as if he's trying things out, but I just don't think that they have the player. So I don't think that whatever he tries in there, to be honest, is going to change anything. Watching back some of the highlights, and Leeds, like you said, is a newly promoted side, and West Ham's been in the league for a while. They just, Leeds kind of just made them look like what every other team that played them made them look like this year. So worrying times, I'd say, for West Ham for sure.
They didn't even, if you watch the game, I watched most of it, like I said, until 80th minute or somewhere about. West Ham just didn't offer anything. Like I said, a promoted team at no point in time, like I said, when I left and it was 2-0, I thought that was game done and over for Leeds, and then they pulled one in the 90 plus minute. But yeah, West Ham, what do you expect from them as a Premier League team, especially playing against a newly promoted team? Didn't look like they offered anything offensively. Like we already touched on how they can't defend at the back. So yeah, definitely a worrying season ahead. I think we will say that in most of the weeks coming for West Ham, honestly.
Well, we can move on from West Ham. I think honestly, it's just a depressing talk, if we just keep talking about them. But next game or next set of games, for Saturday, first game being the Chelsea Sunderland game. Obviously, we know Sunderland won this game 2-1. And I think I texted you when Garnacho scored in the fourth minute. He had a decent run with the ball, and then I told you good goal. I felt goalkeeper should have maybe done better, but I mean, you create the chance and you finished it. And Chelsea was up 1-0, and I thought they'd get a couple more, and it just didn't happen. I mean, it was an interesting watch from my perspective, right? Somebody who has no real interest in the game in terms of either team, not a fan, sort of neutral. But from your perspective, watching that Chelsea game, what are some of the thoughts that go on through your head throughout that game and how it progressed?
Honestly, I think it was a good game from Sunderland. I think Sunderland started well. Garnacho obviously scored in the fourth minute, but I think up until that came from a transition kind of. Pedro Neto to Garnacho real quick, and like you said, goalkeeper probably could have done better. But we took the lead nevertheless. And then after that, we grew into the game. But I think Sunderland even then played, try to press high, try to do the right things, and they surprised. I don't know if they surprised Chelsea, but they were by far in the first couple, 15, 20 minutes there, I think, surprised Chelsea a bit and were, I would say, just edging it. Everything that came for Chelsea came a bit against the run of play. But I think that was the story of the whole game, to be honest. Sunderland played well in the first half. I think in the second half, Chelsea improved, and throughout the first half as well. In the second half, they improved a lot. But in terms of the defensive, Sunderland packed it, made it very difficult. Play with a line of five in the back, so the spaces were limited. But yeah, on the day, from watching it as a Chelsea fan, one of the worst games I've seen from Moises Caicedo. Not in terms of like anything crazy, but just like his passing and stuff like that. So I think I picked him out specifically because there's not many times I think I will or ever say that. But just from him, I could pick. There's a lot of people out that the little final details was just missing, and I don't think necessarily that they deserve to lose, but I think Sunderland can be happy with the victory because of their gameplay or their game plan, I should say, and what they did, especially with it being an away at the top six.
It's interesting you point out Caicedo in the midfield because I think a lot was kind of said about Granit Xhaka after the game, and people were praising his midfield performance, and I think the consensus sort of is that they've gotten an experienced player who is sort of a leader. And it's interesting you point out the Caicedo side of that, obviously the Chelsea side of that in that midfield. Um, I did want to ask you because I saw a lot about this on social media after the game. The second goal that Sunderland scored there at the end, in added time, I think people were criticizing who was the second defender there. Was it Tosin?
Yeah, Tosin and Chalobah, but I
Yeah.
mean, for both of them, it was their fault. Honestly, I think it was just the second defender watching, but it's schoolboy defending from Chelsea. It's not something new that happens with them. I remember, I believe it was like match week 1, 2, 3 on our first pod. I was kind of in that realm of we had just came off of the Club World Cup and stuff. I mean, I'm very realistic with the club, but it's kind of more, I remember I said the center backs or the defense is a little bit immature, but watching them make these mistakes game in, game out, it's just at this point they're decent enough center backs, but I don't know if they'll ever be those. It's just a question mark over most of our center backs at the club at the moment, to be honest. So I agree. I think they definitely deserve criticism, and I saw that as well. I mean, you saw the second guy is just watching, while the other guy is pretty much, even if we're not going to blame both, the guy that's just watching, that's ball watching, the other guy defend, I think it's just, yeah, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think, when you say if you don't know that they'll ever reach that sort of level or whatever, I think naturally I kind of think to myself or ask myself, you're obviously a fan of the club and you watch the club and you know it way better than most people do. When you say that you don't think that they'll ever be in that level, do you think that that's something that Chelsea should strengthen in terms of looking to add a player or players in that position specifically? Or do you think that, it's still sort of like a work in progress and they should try and grow with what they have?
For me, I think our best center back now is out with a torn ACL injury, which is Levi. And he has ups and downs as well. So I'm not gonna, because he's missing, heap praise on him, and try to say that he didn't make mistakes as well. He does. I think we're missing his aggression and his ball progression that helps us to in build up play and stuff. But for the other center backs, Fofana as well started the season with him and Levi, and they did pretty well together. I think those two, I think the future can be bright, especially if Levi comes back and is on track of, just kind of keep growing as a center back in the Prem and stuff. I think he has that future ahead where it could be bright for him. Also with Fafana, depending on his injury. But I think for everyone else, it's a bit questionable. Trevor Chalobah. I love him, and I think most Chelsea fans do. We recalled him, and he's proved that he is, like I said, a Premier League worthy center back. But I don't know if it's going to be a center back that takes Chelsea to that next step. But honestly, also as a Chelsea fan, I don't know if Chelsea is worried about going to that next step, as a club and a whole in general, because we've kind of seen the strategy with this new ownership of, buying young and selling. We kind of knew, our manager spoke about it, but I don't know if the club is worried about taking that next step in terms of winning title, at least at the moment, or they're just kind of trying to get the best player in each position and then sell, off that, and then we work from there. Because I think if you're a serious club and you want to challenge, and you have to fix the position. That's my stance. It's not just a center back, but goalkeepers, not goalkeeper, but goalkeeping position as well is a big questionable, and some of the wingers as well. But I think if you're a serious club that wants to challenge, we saw Arsenal this summer, and just for the past couple of years, not just Arsenal, but even Liverpool. I know it's a tough time for them at the moment, but yeah, if you're a serious club and you want to challenge, you have to go and spend for those big players. And if not, we're going to be the way we are and trying to find, the Cole Palmer and those kind of player off that position. But it's going to be a while, and it's going to be something that we're going to have, lots of game like Saturday.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, and everything you say kind of makes sense. So I get it. I think it'll be interesting to see how Chelsea bounce back. I think that their next game is to Spurs, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on. But I'm interested in sort of how they come back from this, because obviously this is a disappointing result, right? And I agree with you. I don't necessarily think Chelsea deserved to lose this game. You know, in the Prem, games can turn, and you don't always get what you deserve. I 100% agree with you. I think it's gonna be interesting to see how they bounce back, and just Chelsea's season overall too, because from the outside, I can agree with you that you say you don't necessarily think the club is looking in that direction. I think obviously fans want to see the club sort of get back to the highs of the mid 2000s that Chelsea had. So it's interesting to see how they progress towards that. But brilliant result for Sunderland. I think they ended the day in second place with this result. So definitely outperforming, overperforming everyone and anyone that had anything to say about the Premier League before the season started. And I guess, that kind of takes us into the next set of games, which I guess we can start with the Newcastle game. And this was one that you actually had spot on. You had 2-1 for Newcastle, and I think I had 2-0 for Newcastle. So Fulham got a goal, and I think Lukic scored it. It was a decent sort of, well, not a decent goal, it was a scramble, if I remember correctly. But, I think it's good for Newcastle. Last time out, they lost to Brighton, so I think, obviously good for them to get 3 points. Fulham's struggles kind of continue in this game. Losing this game kind of brought them down to 17th place, so I definitely think that there's some worry there, right?
Gotta feel for them though. I mean, especially conceding that late Guimaraes goal. I still think, a better performance was 1-1 going into 90. So, a draw at least and on the way at Newcastle wouldn't be a bad result for them considering what we've talked about in the past couple of weeks. But yeah, you just have to feel for them. And then of course, Voltemade having the curse of being the most transferred in striker this week. Nothing to show for it. But yeah, I felt for Fulham in this one. I think, obviously it's a tough time and an improvement in getting that equalizing the 56th minute there and looking to push on for a bit more. But on the day, Newcastle just edged them, especially in the last minute. And you know how football goes, we'd be talking about Fulham here right now if it was the other way around. So I don't see it as such a bad performance, especially seeing, I didn't watch the game, but from the highlights, But obviously, in terms of points, Fulham now being just out the relegation zone is it's a bit worrying for them. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to touch on that, I think I agree with you. I don't think that it was a bad performance by them. Watching back the highlights, I think both teams sort of created chances, but the two Newcastle goals that they did score were both errors. Errors by Calvin Bassey. And when you're the center defender making errors, you're going to get punished. 9 times
Yeah,
out of 10. So I do feel for them as well. I think that that's kind of it's hard to stomach when you make two errors like that, and those are the two goals that the opposition scores. So I agree with you. I think Fulham. I don't think that they'll be sucked into a battle down there. To be honest, I think as the season progresses, they'll start getting results here and there. But I definitely think that looking at that team, it's sort of the same team that they've had in the last couple years. So I think bringing in some fresh new faces, wouldn't hurt them. Obviously, with the right recruitment and stuff, but I feel for them as well. So I definitely share that with you. Um,
yeah. I mean, over the summer, I mean, Marco Silva talked about it. I think it was one of the. It was kind of. It wasn't as deep as. It wasn't as big as Nuno, but yeah, Silva definitely talked about wanting new faces. I don't know if Fulham has the funds to do that at the moment, so I think that was a big question mark. But yeah, he talked about that. That was a big. It cost a lot of raffle, I remember. Either in the transfer early part of this season or towards the end of last season. But there's a press conference about it.
Yeah, yeah, I think I remember that actually. So it's gonna be interesting to see if he does get anyone in, and I think that he is one of those guys where he's been there for a little bit. I think if you don't back him, I think Fulham could find themselves searching for someone new in that
Yeah,
position. So we'll see kind of how that progresses. Next game, it was a big one, and I think, anytime United play decent nowadays, it kind of takes over social media just because they don't have or they haven't had lately a lot of these type of days. But, it was interesting because I had this game predicted 3-1, and up until the last sort of well, I mean, there was 2 goals scored in extra time to make it 4-2, and it was 3-1 up until, the 90th minute. So I was kind of excited. I was like, there's 2 games spot on for me this weekend. And I remember I literally got up from the couch and went to go grab something. I come back and it's 4-2, and I was like, what has happened?
telling you, man.
But good. I think overall good game by United. I mean, they went up 3-0, and it just looked like they were a little bit more fluid. It looked like they were playing well. The
Yeah,
Cunha and Buemo, even Šeško looked like he played decently. It looked like better. I mean, even Bruno, for
especially.
for I think it was Mbeumo's second goal, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, that ball was played into him, and he had taken a look just before the ball was played into him at Mbeumo's position, and he just lets the ball roll right past him, and he doesn't even touch it. And I mean, it just falls perfectly into Mbeumo's path, and he just strikes it and scores. And I was just thinking to myself, I mean, that was a brilliant little play right there. And I think that kind of just set sort of a tone for his performance for the whole game. I think that he played better. I still don't think that that position is suitable for him, but I think that he played better. I did played better. Goalkeeper is looking decent, but yeah, good victory for United. 3 points, and
Yeah.
it moves them up the table, so kind of closer to where they want to be.
Yeah, I think it was. I felt it was a very confident performance from United from the start, and Brighton played well as well. I mean, I watched most of the game myself, and Brighton was attacking, but I think what you're seeing with this United is I was watching a game with my brother-in-law, which is a United fan, and he said something that I think stood out to me. And all he was saying was that we don't need, 11 believers. We just need a couple. And I think that's what you're seeing, especially after these, 3 wins in a row. I actually think the opposite of Embuemo on the other side now, because I think with him and Ahmad, if you watch that game fully, I think they're both understanding, as my brother-in-law was saying. I think he just wants another Ahmad or something on the other side. But I'm telling him, the balance in football sometimes it's probably better that way because you don't want to attack him. But I think for Embuemo and Ahmad, what you're seeing on that right side there is exactly what hammering ones from the formation of, someone stretching the pitch and someone making the runs in those half spaces, or, in way more times, and sometimes it's Ahmad, whoever the case might be. But I think you finally see that confidence and them finding and then get more comfortable in, the back three and their formation and what to do. I saw a couple of times of Ahmad just dropping in, getting back and helping defensively, but I also saw a couple of times where Ahmad is receiving the ball wide, and some of those touches is him, coming inside and Buemo making the run, pulling the defender. I also see Euro stepping out, into the right back position, spreading that back three. So I think it's just a more confident and them understanding their role more. Because I think, with coaching and especially football nowadays, like we said, the details are getting so close. The gap is getting so close. So the details matter, every little details. And you can see a United from that victory. What I saw was just a more confident United in terms of their structure, and they're working more on the pitch and believing in what they're doing, especially with, like we said, even losing Mount in the warm up there because Sesko wasn't supposed to start, right? So yeah, I think it was a fun performance from United, and I think something deserving the fans deserve, I would say. But yeah, very confident, and I enjoyed it even as a Chelsea fan, watching that performance from United this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on. They were due one of those. It's been tough times at Old Trafford. But it's interesting you mentioned the Ahmad and Mbeumo kind of link up because I think before this game I was reading, I think there was an interview done with Ahmad, and they were asking about his relationship with Mbeumo, and I think that the questions that were posed to him were more sort of like they were trying to kind of make it seem as if they were asking a question about his arrival, but I think that in reality they were trying to say like, did you see him as a threat when he came in because their positioning is similar. And, I actually liked what he said because he said something along the lines of, it took them a little bit to kind of get the understanding with each other. But he said, when he pushes into the 10, he's like, I fall back into the wing back. And if he pushes out wide into the wing back role, he's like, I move into the 10. So, he was basically saying that like, we're kind of learning to work off each other. And I
Yeah,
think that it's starting to look better, right? They're starting to understand sort of the movements of that formation a little bit better. And it's funny because, you and I both know kind of how social media is and how, most of your fans are. And, before the last few games, people were calling for Amorim to change the formation. I mean, there was even, pundits on Sky Sports, saying that he has to change the formation. His formation is not going to work in the league. And after three wins, you're not hearing a single one of those people talk about the formation anymore. So I think that's kind of funny to sort of see and not see. But what
yeah,
a goal by Danny Welbeck. What a free kick. I mean,
yeah.
absolute stunner.
I mean, I honestly enjoyed most of the goals in that game. The first one from Cunha, I think, was just a class goal as well, finally showing the kind of player that he could be. And like you said, the free kick, Welbeck. We've known Welbeck, right? He's been in the league, been around the league for a long time. So what a class. He just keeps proving to be. I mean, he scored against Chelsea the other day when Brighton beat us as well. Yeah, I have nothing but praise for Danny, but nothing that I haven't seen him done. He's kind of like Milner now, but a different Milner. I think everyone just kind of, since he was, United, Arsenal, I think people are just happy to see him still thriving in the league, and I'm happy to see that his longevity is paying off because, but yeah, what a goal from him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a brilliant way to kind of put it. He's like a Milner, but a different type of Milner. I think
Yeah,
that's spot on. But moving on, the long throw strikes again.
yeah, mate. Oh my,
Brentford, what a game. This was, I don't know if you watched this game or watched back the highlights, but I thought this was a brilliant game.
yeah. This was a top game. I watched this game. I'm
And
obviously rooting for Brentford, but yeah, what a brilliant game from both sides, to be honest.
yeah, and I was just gonna say, not necessarily just because Liverpool lost. Am I saying that? I'm just saying it as like a brilliant watch. I mean, end to end,
Yeah,
kind of a little bit of everything, right? Brentford get the first goal through a long throw, and I mean that guy, I should have written his name down, but he can absolutely launch that ball. I mean, I was watching some of those throws in the game, and I was in disbelief, like how far he was throwing that ball. I did think the penalty was a little bit iffy, that Brentford got. I thought that, it kind of looks like it's outside of the box, to be honest.
yeah.
but I think that there should have been um, I think Van Dijk elbowed one of the Brentford players in the box. So I thought that that one was a penalty, and to be honest, I thought this one wasn't. So those kind of, in my opinion, even out at least. And then I know there was some controversy over the added time in the first half and whatnot, but I thought Brentford overall played well. Like they pressed Liverpool pretty high at times. Obviously mix and match their pressing, but at times they were pressing Liverpool up until their 18-yard box. So it wasn't like they sat back the whole game or whatever. They had 17 shots on goal, one less than Liverpool. So it was a brilliant watch. Salah got a good goal at the end there. I thought that that was sort of a good take from him. But other than that, I mean, he looks way off.
Yeah, man, it was a tough game from Brentford. I think my biggest thing just watching Brentford this year, I think kind of it's kind of going under the radar. But after watching that game, I was saying to myself, like, no one's talking about Keith Andrews and how seamless it's just seemed. I mean, I know he was a part of the coaching staff for Brentford for the past couple of years or however long it's been. I'm not sure, quite sure, but I know he was there with Thomas Frank as like a set piece coach. But I mean, after losing also a couple of players and their manager, like we said this year, just a little bit seamless in terms of picking up points, still being very competitive, long throw, like we said, causing problems, figuring out ways to win games and creating havoc. Because you got to remember, it wasn't a winner, but they tied it up. They had a draw against Chelsea, and just some other great performances this year. So yeah, I think it was a brilliant performance, but not something. It's the first time seeing from them. Just surprised that they're not getting talked about as they should in the media. And yeah, for Liverpool, yeah, the pressure is on for Slot now, isn't it? Kind of seeing him as a different manager than we saw last year. And I mean, it's something that you and I kind of notice. I think that's why, it's a good thing to kind of have like a level head for the Prem, because I think I've always seen it, but the Prem, we've talked about it on this pod so many times. We know that the Premier League will figure you out, one way or another. It's just the Prem figuring it out now, figuring him out now. And I think the pressure is going to them at Liverpool. A good game, end-to-end game, for the 4-4 now defeats. And Salah, like you said, looking a shadow of himself. I think just overall, there's a lot of question mark in that Liverpool team at the moment. The commentator while watching that game said something very valuable that stuck to me. And we're questioning Konate and Van Dijk at the moment for their defending. We got to remember a lot of times, I think what we're seeing now is obviously with the new goalkeeper, a lot of times Allison saved them, and I guess we weren't really necessarily focused on that as the outsiders. But thinking about past couple of years, there's been a lot of, because what Allison 1v1 we know is very incredible. But yeah, just seeing it now, I think, Van Dijk being questioned, age is becoming a part. Kanate, is he there or is he his mind in Madrid or wherever his move might be next year? And those fullback, we've talked about it repeatedly on the show that they just don't seem to be a fit, at least at the moment right now. And, misfiring attackers. Yeah, very questionable for them. But, as we've said, before, the Prem will figure it out. It's up to Slot now to kind of find his way back into it. But yeah, I think people are finding ways to play against Liverpool that they're not very much enjoying. I mean, Slot is not very shy about saying that.
Well, it's couple of different points, but I think you're right about the goalkeeper thing. I don't necessarily think that the goalkeeper that they have in there, I'm not even gonna try and pronounce his name, but
Mohamedashvili, man.
yeah, Mamardashvili. I don't necessarily think he's a bad goalkeeper, but the saying goes in the Prem is a good goalkeeper wins you 10 points a year. I think that definitely can be something that I haven't seen anyone talk about that yet. But I was seeing some tweets over the weekend, and just some people kind of were just having a laugh, and they were basically saying that in the last few conferences, Slot has basically told other teams how to play against him, and it's interesting to me that there's such a big focus on other teams, and I would love for some of these journalists to ask him some questions on his selection and some of his ideas, just because I think, you know, I think obviously we know last year Liverpool was this, standout team, runaway team. And this year, the first 5 games, winning them, I think everyone kind of thought the same thing was going to continue. And my father-in-law is actually a Liverpool fan, and we were talking about it, and probably one of the most level-headed Liverpool fans I know. And he was saying, based off those first 5 games, and he was saying this back then, he was saying it's gonna catch up to Liverpool, and he was saying Liverpool are gonna have some bad results, and it's eventually gonna hit just because the manner of some of those victories. And I think that you and I,
Mm-hmm.
even discussed that on the pod.
Seeding 2 to 10 man
Yep.
Newcastle.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's interesting to see how they bounce back from this, because I think that, they have to and they will eventually. But 4 losses in a row is tough to kind of stomach for any team in the Premier League, let alone somebody who's challenging for the title itself. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens. It's gonna be interesting to see how they kind of move forward. I know that they have Villa next week, which is a tough game for them. Obviously, Villa's form, which we're going to talk about in a second here. But Villa's on good form, and then it doesn't get any easier. They go to City after that, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing it, how they bounce back, and yeah.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see because when you really think about it right now, Arsenal's closest competitor is what, 6 points behind them?
7, I think.
Yeah, 7 points behind them. So, I can look at Bournemouth and no disrespect to Bournemouth or Tottenham and Sunderland that makes up the top four. But, I think we all can respectfully all say that I don't think any of those teams are going to win the Premier League this season, at least. So, yeah, when you think about it so early and, Arsenal looking so dominant, I think it's definitely worrying for the rest of the league. And I've kind of said this for a long time that I think, even when City was winning 4-4, just it's kind of been a bit, I wouldn't say not for Arsenal, but just a bit disappointing from the rest of the league, because, especially when you look at the start, but lots of games to go. So I guess we can't really talk or call it too early, but yeah, it's a bit worrying when you think their closest competitor is 7 points behind in what, 9 games played.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that kind of brings us to Sunday's round of games, and it was a busy Sunday. Kicking us off on Sunday. Well, one of the games that kicked us off was the Bournemouth Forest game, and a 2-0 victory for Bournemouth, moving them into second place, like you just mentioned. What a season Areola and his men are having. I mean, brilliant start to the season.
Yeah, what a performance from them as well. I mean, obviously a very resilient Forrest from Dyche, but yeah, good performance from Bournemouth. So we keep saying it, after losing those center backs and stuff. But yeah, good performance and a great performance from my old guy, Georgi Petrovic in goal for them. He was their man of match. I watched the game and made some good saves, some spectacular saves for them. So yeah, very happy just to see Bournemouth continue, honestly.
Yeah. And not I mean, obviously another loss for Forest, but I don't think that they played terribly awful. They looked a little bit better, looked a little bit more
Yeah, a lot more
competitive.
solid, like we said, a little bit more structured.
Yeah, and what a goal. That first goal was directly off a corner
Yeah,
kick.
what a goal that was. There's some good goals in the Prem. I love that we haven't touched on it yet, but yeah, that goal was, and also some of the goals in the Burnley Wolves game was pretty quality as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, interesting to see how Dice sort of, obviously he hasn't been there long, how he kind of structures this team. And, next up they host United, who's kind of, flying high on adrenaline at the moment. So I think that'll be an interesting watch for sure. That kind of takes us to the Arsenal game. 1-0 victory. I think I thought that, it'd be a little bit more, but
set piece again, ole ole. Hey, gotta go for it. What a goal though. What a goal from Eze.
What a goal. I mean, I think this is what Arsenal signed him for, right? Sort of those
Yeah,
difficult
yeah.
games, kind of a moment of brilliance, of magic. His first goal in the league for Arsenal, 1-0 to the Arsenal, and
Getting in the stars, man, against his old club.
absolutely. They're flying high. I mean, I think Arsenal is kind of flying high at the moment. Defensively, they look solid as a rock. I think in the month of October, they faced one shot on target, and I mean, if you saw the shot on
Yeah.
target, you'd laugh. It was a header. It was a header that Raya punched directly off of Nketiah's head in this game. So, I mean, that's an insane stat to kind of read.
Yeah, it's a pretty insane stat of what Arsenal has in 9 games, 3 goals
Yeah,
conceded, just clean sheets, and it's not, not just in the Premier League, but also in Europe. They're actually a unit. So
yeah, and
yeah, it's
and
credit to them.
it's interesting because like you and I know, growing up, Arsenal had always sort of such a very much a leaky defense, I'd say. And to see them kind of turn into this team where, the defense is probably um, their strongest quality overall, um, is interesting for me. And it obviously it's great, right? If you have a good defense, you're in any games. Good victory by Arsenal. They kind of create, more of a gap between them and Liverpool and City with this game. Overall, solid performance.
As an opponent fan, I mean, it just goes back to kind of what I keep saying again. It's just Arsenal, I think if they win the league this year, which I'm heavily tipping them to, it's gonna be preserved. Obviously criticism their way about the set pieces and stuff like that. But I think now Arsenal, is in a position as a team that most teams in the I think every team in the Premier League would want to be. Where Arsenal or feel the way Arsenal feels at the moment, like we said, 9 games in and only 3 goals conceded. As a Chelsea fan, I'm even thinking about our 15 goals conceded in that season, if that will be broken. But I know nowadays football is a bit different, so I still feel a bit confident. But I mean, you're thinking about that, right? 9 games in, they just look like an absolute unit, like a well-oiled machine. At the moment, doing the right things, and I have to give credit to them. I have to give credit because I see a lot of criticism from the outside in terms of the set pieces and stuff. I mean, but we've touched on it so many times. Like the gap in football has closed. It's not Brazil beating countries like we said 6-0, 8-0 anymore. Those games rarely ever happen anymore, right? So I think Arsenal has found that right balance of we've seen them trying to play beautiful football, like we said, not even just while coming up being young kids, but I think we saw Arteta throughout his however many years he's been there try to play and try to do a lot of different ways of attacking it. And this season, for now, at least in 9 games, they just like a team that everyone would want to be. Obviously, people are saying take the handbrakes a bit off more, but I think that is very also hypocritical because we sit here and talk about earlier that week in match week 9, the Sunderland Chelsea victory. And Sunderland went to Chelsea, and their game plan was, like we said, a back line of 5. They packed it. At times, it was 11 players in the box. Most times, it was at least 10. So it was very difficult. And for the rest of the league watching that, you'll never hear someone say, well, for Sunderland, they played a certain way or whatever. It's giving praise to Sunderland because of what Sunderland is, being newly promoted and stuff like that, and Chelsea spending the money that they spend and being the big team that they are, which is fair enough. I have no complaints in that area, but I think when you praise them for doing that, if it was the other way around, if Chelsea was to play in that sense and win the game, you'd hear a lot of critiques and stuff like that. So if you're praising Sunderland for winning the game in that sense, I think you have to praise Arsenal for finding that, like accepting the fact that the gap in football is close. Like they're not beating these teams 3-0 and 4-0 anymore, but they're understanding if it's a set piece or just a 1-0 or make it very difficult to score against. It's going to give them a lot better chances of winning what they want, and which is the league. So yeah,
Yeah.
I have to give credit, man. Honestly, from just watching, I think they look so far. It's 9 games in. They look like an absolute unit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I think anytime you have a team like obviously we know in the last few years, Liverpool and City have fought for titles and then, City have however many, 7 and Liverpool have 2. And I think whenever there's a team that comes in to sort of break that two team back and forth, I think that it's always like a major talking point just because it's not an easy thing to do, right? And you think back to like the Chelsea and United years, and it was difficult for City to kind of especially after their takeover to kind of break that barrier. So I think that, it's always going to be talked about if Arsenal can, this year eventually do it and break that cycle of City dominance and then, some Liverpool in there too. I think it'll be honestly, and I'm not just saying this as an Arsenal fan, but I think it'll be sort of good for the league. I think that it's been far too long of that City dominance and Liverpool fighting with them for titles and whatnot. So I think it'll be good for the league. I think that it'll be good for some other teams too, um, that just haven't had success in a while, to kind of show them where sort of Arsenal has come from in terms of when Arteta took over this club to now. I think that, it'll be a very good sort of story, similar to, in some ways similar to Liverpool and Klopp, right? But I think, even before Klopp, Brendan Rodgers, was challenged, not challenging, but did fight for some titles, some Premier Leagues. He was up there and close. When Arteta took over, I hadn't seen the Champions League in years. So I think bringing a team from basically a laughing stock of a team back up to where he has deserves a lot of credit. And like you said, we've seen Arsenal free flowing. We've seen Arsenal. Now we're seeing them sort of more solid in the back line and not giving up a lot of chances. And I think that that's sort of the key. And I remember back to the United Ferguson years and even Chelsea years. The defense was always a key. I mean, the defense back then, the defense is what won you the title. So I think that I like the fact that we have a good defense this year. I would like to see us score a little bit more. But as long as, we're keeping clean sheets, I think that we always have a chance to win every game that we play. I think besides that, the Szoboszlai free kick and that Liverpool game, we wouldn't have lost the game this year. So I think that we're in a very, very good spot moving forward. I guess that kind of rounds up Arsenal, and we've kind of been saying the same things these last few weeks about them. But moving to a team that I thought that this game would be difficult. I was upset that Haaland didn't get on the score sheet. Obviously happy that City lost, but it's my first week bringing in Erling Haaland,
You brought in Erling for FPL.
and he let me down. Maybe I should start bringing in like full Liverpool team and a full City team, and they won't get any points because it seems like as soon as I bring somebody in, they're not getting anything. So,
You're not getting no points, man.
but 1-0 victory for Villa. What a result for them, mate. Matty Cash goal. It was a decent
What a
goal
goal
too.
it was. Yeah,
Yeah,
what a goal on the half volley there.
yeah.
Yeah, it was. I had a Holland myself as my captain, so I feel for that. But yeah, he almost scored at the end until they called it back for offside, which was off. But yeah, I mean, what a goal from Villa. Villa picking it up at the moment, and City had some chances, but like we kind of said this season, I don't think it's anything surprising. It's gonna be ups and downs for them because they had chances, but it wasn't anything I would consider like clear cut that they deserve. So yeah, it was one of those games. My captain, I didn't get much points either, but kind of happy as well, especially considering that we lost to Sunderland. So, I was happy for us to kind of stay in and about those areas. I don't know why the hope is the one that kills us, honestly, because after Sunderland I kind of want to just forget about the Prem for this year, but I've seen City and those teams drop points and still being in those areas gave me a bit of confidence. So, yeah, I was happy for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting because I think we both had City to win this game, and seeing Villa lose midweek in the Europa League, which was their first loss in a long time, I think since their loss to Crystal Palace in August, and seeing them lose that game, I think was a bit, I wouldn't say worrying for me, but I was kind of, I didn't really know what to expect this weekend, and sure enough, they bounced back and they beat City, and obviously, it's not the City that we know and expect, but it's still a decent City team coached by Pep, so I think that, that's an accomplishment always, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah, like you said, it's always an accomplishment beating City. But I mean, from the football point of view, we've watched it long enough to know, like we've analyzed. I don't think they're going to be a City that goes on a run like that anymore. They're still a decent. That doesn't make them a bad team, but yeah, I don't think they're going to be that City this season. So I always kind of, even going forward, I know they, like you said, it was one of their first defeats in a while, but I still think there's question mark just all over them, to be honest, defensively. We've seen Reinders and stuff like that. Just, there's a lot of question mark as we can see, and some of those players are hit or miss. The only consistent one that we can really pick out of that City team at the moment is really Holland, as you know. So yeah, I'm not as like you. I feel like, just I've watched them enough to know that they're not going to be as consistent as the old City, but still a good team that can beat anyone on their day. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, 2 games left in this match week, and I hate to sometimes even go to Wolves and West Ham just because they're the positions that they're in. But Burnley with another victory, and I bet against, I think, Burnley the last 3 weeks, and they've proven me wrong. So I don't know if I'm going to bet against them going forward. Well, yeah, I might have to for this upcoming weekend because I think Arsenal are away to Burnley, but definitely difficult to do so. What a game. I mean, I think that this was a kind of a back to back or end to end, I should say, sort of thrilling
Yeah.
game. was a brilliant first goal by Fleming, and Wolves pressed and created some chances. So again, I think last week we said the same thing about Wolves. Again, I think that there's some signs there that we're seeing that we're not necessarily seeing with West Ham.
Yeah, I think Wolves, I was gonna say, I mean, I know it's disappointing that they lost and good for Burnley, but I think even it was a bit, I wouldn't say unlucky. I think in the second half they're watching Wolves was pretty dominant. They just couldn't find that finish, coming back they were 2-0 down and they came back 2-2. But I think they pushed and just got unlucky with the break at the end there. Like we said, more encouraging sign on the Wolves side than West Ham. So I don't after watching that game I was able to I don't feel as it's as worrying as what I saw from watching West Ham.
Interesting to see if they can put together, some decent performance and get some points and get out of that bottom three. So interesting to see that moving forward. Burnley with some decent results lately. I mean, they're not far from the bottom three, but they're sitting on 10 points, and obviously 18th place. Forrest is on 5, so they're a decent amount of points clear. As of now, or being early on in the season, but they're putting together some performances. I think they have a decent little team. I don't think that they're necessarily as strong as the other two that came up with them, but you never know. I mean, they could stay in the league.
Yeah, I mean, after 9 games, 10 points is still, extraordinary for a newly promoted team. So, yeah, hopefully they continue and I think they'll be happy with where they're at the moment. But yeah, after 9 games, considering, like we said, there's a team that finished with 11 points last season. So I think anyone in Burnley would be happy for them.
All right, well, that takes us over to your favorite stadium, the Hill Dickinson Stadium.
Oh, what a game, man. Everton disappointed me. Grealish disappointed me. Kudus disappointed me because he didn't score or did anything. But, thanks for the 3 points anyway. And I think it's only right Van de Ven, after a week of giving us 0 points, blessed us with 23 points. So what a game this was, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was interesting because I don't think this was a 3-0 game. I don't know
Yeah,
if you feel the same
it
way or
wasn't a
not.
three nil game. I think it was not a 3-0 game. I just think it was one of those where I would say Spurs took their chances, I guess. Set piece again, 2 set pieces. And I'm not even mad at the set pieces, to be honest. I'm just thinking that Everton didn't offer as much as they could and
Yeah.
messed up in a bit areas. But yeah, I think Spurs, like you said, it was one of those where you win 3-0, you take it, but it wasn't a 3-0 game.
Yeah, absolutely. Spurs are sitting in third place on 17 points, ahead of City, United, Liverpool, Chelsea, all sort of teams that I expect to, be closer up there, I'd say. So, I mean, they're sitting good. I think it's going to be interesting to see the game against Chelsea because that's a 6 pointer. Chelsea win that, they go level on points with them. If they lose, they're 6 points behind. So I think that's going to be a very, very interesting game this weekend.
Yeah, I think it will be an interesting game as well. But yeah, who knows? Honestly, I'm not gonna bet on Chelsea or against them anymore because it's the hope, like I said, that kills. So I'm just watching to see whatever happens from it. And hopefully it's an interesting game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that rounds out match week 9. A good match week, I'd say, and sort of a thrilling match week across the Prem, upsets and whatnot. But obviously looking forward to match week 10. I think we have the League Cup midweek, so we'll see how that goes. But you ready
Is
for
it,
our predictions?
is this the last one before international break?
No, I think we get one more and then international.
Okay, well, it's good. Excited to see what happens. Some interesting games coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's jump right into it. My favorite sort of segment of the pod is the predictions. Just kind of, get to see what we kind of sort of think about each team and the performances and kind of tie it all together. First game, Brighton Leeds. What are you feeling? What are you going with?
This is going to be a good game. I think both teams are in good form. Brighton, I mean, obviously just lost to United, but like we said, a confident United that's finally playing. But I think it will be an interesting game. I'm going to go for Brighton edging this one I'm going to go 2-1 Brighton.
All right. I agree with you. I think Brighton will win. I'm going to go 2-0 Brighton. All right. Burnley, Arsenal. Tough game to call. What are you thinking?
Well, not so tough. I think Arsenal will come out on top in this. I think I'm going to go 2-0 Arsenal.
Okay.
3-0 Arsenal. I'll go 3-0.
3-0. Okay. I think it's good that you changed that because I was gonna go 2-0.
Yeah, yeah, I'll go 3-0. I think Arsenal will have too much for them and just kind of, as we said, stifle the game out and bag some goals up top.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully. All right, next one. This is a difficult one to call. Palace Brentford.
Yeah, this will be interesting. Palace, Brentford. Yeah, it could be a 2-2. I'm gonna go for both teams at the moment. Brentford looking good. Brentford got that kid Sade, or however you pronounce his name. He's quick, and Thiago up front. I'm gonna go with Brentford Palace. I'm gonna go 2-1 Palace.
All right. I think I like that, but I'm gonna stick with 2-2. I don't know. Just let's see. Big game down at the bottom. Fulham Wolves. Tough game for Wolves. I think, Fulham obviously, need some points. They haven't had much luck lately. I think in their last 5 games, 4 losses and 1 draw. So I don't know, man. I don't want to give it to Fulham, but I think I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna go 1-0 for Fulham on this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna say. I was saying Fulham has to win. I'm gonna go. I'm going. I'm gonna go. I'm actually gonna go 2-2.
All right, I like that. I like that. Hopefully, another good performance by Wolves. Get them some points. Sean Dyche then against Ruben Amorim, Forest United. What are you thinking?
It's gonna be a tight one. I'm gonna go 1-1.
Okay, all right. I think United will edge this one, but I think it will be a very, very close game. I think United will find it difficult to score. I see, Forrest doing well on the counter. I'm going to say 2-1 United.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go for the draw there. I think Dice will make it very difficult and probably snag. He's still questionable back there for United, so I don't know if I can go clean sheet United.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's fair. Big game, Spurs Chelsea. I'll give you my prediction before you give me yours. And I think Chelsea will win, and I can see it being 2-0 or 2-1 for Chelsea, but I think I'm gonna go with 2-1 for Chelsea.
Yeah, I'll go. Spurs are doing okay at the moment. I'll go 2-0 Chelsea.
Okay. I like that. I think Chelsea will win this game though. I just for some reason I think that, they're kind of let that
Kind of
last
having that season.
yeah, they're kind of
That's
have
the kind
to
of season that they're having.
yeah, that last result I think is going to kind of give them some extra motivation to get points in this game. So I see them winning. This one's a tough one to call. Liverpool Villa, difficult game. What are you leaning towards?
Liverpool Villa. I think Liverpool has to break the curse now, so I'm gonna go 3-1 Liverpool.
Okay. I agree with you. I think Liverpool has to break their curse and they have to break Villa's record. I mean, Villa, what is it, last 5 games in the league, they've won. Last 4 games in the league, Liverpool have lost. So I think Liverpool will win this. I'm going to go 2-1. I think you and I's favorite team to kind of rag on, West Ham hosting Newcastle on Sunday. Difficult sort of game to call. I don't know, man. I think Newcastle's going to win, obviously. I think the difficult part about it is how much are they going to score?
Yeah, I'm gonna go 3-0.
3-0. I'm gonna go 4-0. I think
3-0.
I think Newcastle will get a couple goals. I think your guy Voldemade will get you some points this weekend.
Hopefully, didn't score last week.
Big game at the top of the table. City Bournemouth. What are we feeling on this one?
City Bournemouth. That's interesting, mate. I'm gonna go. I'm still gonna go City to win. I'm gonna go 2-0 City.
Okay. All right. 2-0 City. I was gonna go 2-2, but I think City will win. I'm gonna go 3-2. I'm gonna go a high scoring game. 5 goals in that one. This one's also a difficult one to call. I mean, given sort of how both these teams have performed this year. Sunderland Everton, last game of the match week. What are you feeling?
This one is away. I think Sunderland will do well. I'm gonna go. I go with a draw again. I'm gonna go for a 2-1 Everton.
Okay, Everton bringing Sunderland back down to earth in the Prem. I like that. I honestly can see this game be a win for Sunderland, a win for Everton, and a draw. Like I can see all 3 of those outcomes happening. I think the one I'm gonna go with is a 1-1 draw though.
I thought about a draw as well, but we'll see how it goes. It'll be interesting either way. I think both good teams and both could win.
Yeah. Well, that concludes our predictions. I'm going to ask you to predict one more thing. How many goals do you think we'll see this weekend off the long throw, and how many goals do you think we'll see this weekend off the corners, I'd say, or free kicks or set pieces?
Honestly, I think the long throw is gonna be in a little bit more this weekend, but I don't know. I'm gonna go for 4 long throws and set pieces. I'll go for 7.
Okay. I like that. I definitely think Brentford will get another goal off a long throw. I mean, that guy launches the ball for them. So as long as he's fit, they're in my book a goal a game off the long throw. It's interesting times in the Premier League. I think you've mentioned this a lot. Is teams. It's so difficult to sort of differentiate or have a difference factor. And I think because we don't have a lot of those differential factor players that we used to have. eh, you take it from anywhere you can get it, right? And I think that the long throws and the set pieces are areas where the ball is in and around the box, the 6 yard box, and anything can sort of happen. I think it'll be interesting to see. It was an interesting match week 9. I think it'll be a just as, if not more interesting match week 10. But that's all. That's all I really have, to be honest, for this one.
Yeah, you got to take those extra points wherever you can, however it comes by, especially nowadays. So hopefully it's a good week. Hopefully pick up some points. Table shuffles up again. We'll see what it looks like after this weekend. But yeah, some interesting games to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that concludes match week 9 pod. Akeem, thank you. I look forward to speaking with you next week, and hopefully we have a brilliant week in the Prem.
Yes, hopefully we get some points. And looking forward for some good games.
All right, we'll see you next time.